For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. We start in Brazil this evening, where the country concludes TV election ads, which originally began on August 19th. According to Brazilian electoral law, a total of 50 minutes of campaign material is aired per day. A third of the time is divided equally between all the presidential candidates. The rest of the time is divided among each candidate based on the number of deputies in the federal Congress of their coalition. During this year presidential campaign, Dilma Rousseff was allocated slightly over 11 minutes per day. The final presidential debate will take place in the city of Rio de Janeiro today, where candidates will have final opportunities to promote their political agenda in front of a nationwide audience. And today, during our special coverage of Brazilian elections, we've taken an in-depth look at one of Dilma Rousseff's strongest campaign weapons: huge investments in social programs that have improved the lives of millions. Stephanie Kennedy brings us this report from a Brazilian favela, one of the areas where countless families have benefited from those policies.
José Mario dos Santos is just one example of community organization here in the Santa Marta favela. Along with his neighbors, he has brought a voice to the once historically marginalized.
The Association of Residents of Santa Marta was created to organize the community. It started its work in 1965 during the period we lived under dictatorship and when no one reached out to us.
Since the Workers' Party government came to power under President Lula da Silva, the community has been strengthened by the numerous social programs.
Today, 85% of the community is involved with social policies. Improvements in housing continue to advance, and now we are in the process of relocating people who live in precarious conditions.
Whereas public services only ever used to attain the city centre, today the social programs aim to be present in the favela, supplying services considered by many as basic rights.
Look, you have people in extreme poverty who receive support, and schools in the community. I work in one of them. I offer education in the middle school. There are many things here and everything is free.
Santa Marta is a different favela compared to what it once was. Its success based on an alliance between community and government. Stephanie Kennedy, Telesur, Rio.
And thanks to Stephanie, Venezuelan Justice Minister Miguel Rodriguez Torres has announced that the murder of Parliament member Robert Serra was an intentional homicide executed with great precision. Rodriguez also offered details regarding the crime. The remains of Serra and his assistant Maria Herrera have arrived at the Federal Legislative Palace's Oval Room for the funeral services that are open to the public. Serra was a legislator from the United Socialist Party of Venezuela. He was the National Assembly's youngest member. Experts in Argentina have accused the media and corporations of launching a scare campaign aimed at slowing down the economy and destabilizing the country in order to make profits for themselves. Here's our correspondent Leonel Poletti with the story.
The media and the opposition repeatedly announced that the sale of cars in Argentina has dropped 20% in comparison to 2013, which was a record-breaking year in sales.
As false seems abroad, but if we compare this year's sales with 2012, car sales are more or less on the same level, and 2012 was not a bad year in all car sales. So, we won't sell the 1 million cars as occurred in 2013, but 7,000, which is huge.
Through a scare campaign which influences Argentines to hang on to their savings, the media makes its contribution in cooling down the economy.
The media is constantly stirring up a devaluation of the Argentine peso, and I think to some extent their bet is to construct the conditions for a maneuver to effectively devalue the peso and then say, see, we were right.
A further devaluation not only means more profit and power for the corporate sector and its allies, it also means destabilization for Argentina's government and its economy.
If I possess securities such as soybeans or dollar securities, I make huge profit following a devaluation because the value of my actives are multiplied. Now who are the losers in a devaluation? those who receive a fixed income in Argentine pesos, which are basically employees, workers in the majority grouping of the economy that's not tied to foreign channels.
Latin America's economic powers have learnt that coups d'etats are no longer viable to remove governments that don't share their interests. In the 21st century, they count on their allies in the mass media to destabilize a government through means of extortion. From Buenos Aires, Leonel Político Duty, Telesur.
And thanks to Leonel. In Quito, Ecuador, Afro-Andean communities celebrated a conference honoring their histories and struggles in the region. Our correspondent Liz Scherfius has the report.
In celebration of the month of Afro-Ecuadorian Pride, an international conference is bringing delegates from across Latin America to the Universidad Andina Simón Bolívar in Quito. Organized by the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation, representatives from Afro-descent communities of Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil, and Peru have come together to discuss common political struggles experienced in the region.
The
importance of this event is that it creates a forum for dialogue between Afro-descendants of Andean countries. And what we want to achieve is an investigation and action plan that can be developed this decade for people of African descent, something the United Nations has just declared.
The goals for the Decade of People of Afro Descent, declared by the United Nations to begin on January 1st, 2015, seeks to promote greater rights for communities. Manuel Garces, an activist from Colombia, speaks of the situation in his country.
It is one of the countries that has the highest number of attacks on Afro descent populations. And this space has to generate a global dynamic that allows for this to be seen, because it is not something from the past, it is something from the present. And from there, we are in solidarity with the whole world.
The conference was organized in honor of Luz Argentina Chiriboga, a writer who focuses on the condition of Afro-Ecuadorian women. She spoke of President Correa's development goals of good living and this application to communities of Afro descent. The event will conclude with a final declaration, which will be disseminated to international organizations. It is expected to focus on the rights to land, education that respects the history of the African diaspora, the inclusion of women, and greater integration between Latin America and Africa. Liz Scherfius, Telesur, Ecuador.
And thanks to Liz, Cuban President Raul Castro wished a contingency of 165 Cuban doctors farewell today. The delegation is headed to Sierra Leone to be part of the global fight against the Ebola virus that has killed more than 3,300 people in West Africa. Today, the International Rescue Committee, comprised of 34 NGOs, warned that the number of cases is doubling roughly every 3 weeks. The group says that the international community has only 4 weeks to stop the crisis from spiraling out of control. In Europe, protesters in both Greece and Italy have taken to the streets denouncing fiscal austerity policies. Greek pensioners marched in the Greek capital of Athens to voice frustration and anger at austerity measures adopted by the government of Prime Minister Antonis Samaras. The protesters rejected the government's plans to cut pensions and increase taxes. In nearby Italy, an estimated 4,000 anti-austerity demonstrators comprised of students and laid-off workers marched near the European Central Bank. Protesters blame the ECB for rises in unemployment and poverty in Italy. Turkey has joined the U.S.-led coalition against IS forces in Iraq and Syria. The Turkish parliament approved a measure with a 3/4 majority which will permit its military to carry out attacks in Iraq and Syria. Meanwhile, the Iraqi government received additional high-tech military assistance from the Russian government to help Iraqi forces in the fight against IS. The military equipment is part of a $4.2 billion military contract signed with Moscow in October of 2012. It comes as the White House has acknowledged applying loose standards and striking targets in Iraq and Syria, which means they are less concerned of civilian casualties. Visitors who climb the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. this month will enjoy a unique view below. On the grounds, they will see a portrait built from 2,300 tons of sand and 800 tons of soil by Cuban artist Jorge Rodriguez Gerarda. It was designed on a 6-acre plot along the National Mall and will be visible from orbit. The artist says he was trying to push the boundaries of art by using global positioning satellites and the software program Photoshop to craft the image. Very cool. More on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.